So recently, Tony Scott, the United States Chief Information Officer, revealed his cybersecurity strategy and implementation plan, which is the long-term follow-on to the 30-day cybersecurity sprint that he implemented in response to the OPM breach earlier this summer. That plan, or the current plan, has 5 major points that I'd like to address and talk about some of the issues that you might want to take into consideration in your agency as you implement this new plan. So, the first point is prioritized identification and protection of high-value information and assets. That's a long way of saying have an inventory. Know what data you have, know what hardware you have, know what systems you have in place, especially your data, because that, after all, is the major asset that you're trying to protect. Theoretically, you have all of this information from your authorization to operate under FISMA. However, it's worth revisiting, especially now in light of the recent OPM breach and the heightened focus on cybersecurity. So take the time to really scrutinize your data, know where it is, know what you have, know where it's going, and know who's authorized to get it. It's important to do a conscientious effort and not reuse previous year's documentation and data. However, don't turn it into an exercise in perfectionism, or you'll wind up reaching a point of diminishing returns. So do a conscientious effort, but don't try to make it exactly perfect, because that may just chew up more time than it's really worth. The second point that Tony Scott wants us to implement or set forth is timely detection and rapid response to cyber incidents. Let's take that in 2 parts, timely detection and rapid response. First of all, timely detection requires appropriate equipment. There's no way you can do that as a human being. You need automated systems, obviously, to do that. DHS provides the Einstein system, and that indeed is an important asset which you absolutely should leverage to help identify incidents. However, recognize that Einstein, while state-of-the-art in signature-based technology, is still a signature-based technology. It uses signatures that are often not available to the general public and is therefore a step ahead of the game, but still it cannot necessarily identify zero-day threats, that is, threats that have not yet been identified as threats their first time around. So leverage Einstein, but also examine technologies that use behavior-based or other statistical or big data-based technologies to find zero-day threats without the need for a signature, even the latest, greatest signatures that Einstein 3A provides. You also need rapid response. So in order to implement rapid response, you have to have a well-oiled, well-rehearsed incident response plan and personnel trained to carry out that plan. When I say personnel trained to carry out that plan, that includes not only the security staff, not only the IT staff, but all of the people involved in any way, shape, or form, stakeholders, senior management, right on up the line, that need to be involved in one fashion or another with an incident response. Don't just take a previous year's plan off the shelf, dust it off, run through a perfunctory exercise, and call it a day. Actually think through what would happen in an emergency and how you really need to respond to that emergency. Make sure your team gets the training they need. Make sure that everyone involved with the exercise has the training required and knows what they're supposed to do. That, after all, is the point of an exercise, an incident response exercise. Again, though, keeping pace with the rapidity and sophistication of new attacks requires assistance from technology. So big data solutions, security solutions that blend analytics with security data, this is where those 2 major trends in the industry intersect, big data and cybersecurity. Look at tools that implement both or that offer a big data approach to analyzing the vast volume of security telemetry that's coming your way, so you can detect an incident quickly and respond in a timely fashion. Number 3, Tony Scott has asked for rapid recovery from incidents when they occurred and accelerated adoption of lessons learned from the sprint assessment. So this is the follow-on to the previous recommendation. Once you've identified a threat, once you've done your initial response, you want to recover from the effects of that attack. Is your data been damaged? Has your reputation been damaged? Do you know what data was stolen, if any? What people it affected? How to reach those people and inform them, if necessary, of the consequences? And how to also adopt the recommendations of the security sprint that were promulgated earlier in the summer. So, rapid recovery from an incident depends on proper implementation of the first two recommendations. First is to have an adequate inventory, and the second is to have a rapid detection and response capability. You can't recover from an incident if you don't know what data you have. You can't recover from an incident if you haven't detected it, or you can't recover quickly if you haven't detected it quickly. So in order to do step 3, you have to make sure that you, strangely enough, do steps 1 and 2 first. The fourth recommendation from Tony Scott is on a somewhat different tack, and it involves a longer-term strategy of recruitment and retention of qualified security personnel. There are a variety of ways to do this at the agency level. It's primarily something that needs to take place at a national level. Academia, the government, all need to be involved in the long-term enhancement of security capabilities in the workforce. But in the short term, there are some things you can do at the agency level. First of all, budget for training for your staff, whether they're contractors or government staff. Have the money available to train them. Technology moves at a blistering pace, as we all know, and without training, there's no way anyone can be expected to keep pace and to know what the latest threats and the latest technologies are and what they can do for you to help keep your agency's data safe. Second, make sure that you keep your technical staff engaged. The training helps. And another way to do that is to understand, if you're working with contractors, the contractor's point of view. A contracting technical staff look at contracts when they're looking for jobs, and they look at how long that contract is for. What's the base period? What are the option years? If a contract is for a very short-term period, that makes them nervous. They might want to get in and get out. Well, that's their prerogative. But if you're looking at retention, and if you're looking at training, and you're looking for people who really know your systems well, you want to retain them for a long time. Consider, as you rebid or contracts, or as you reissue contract RFPs, consider longer periods. This will attract the best people because they want stability in their contracts. They want to take a job, do it well, and know that they'll have that contract or be available on that contract, or simply put, have a job for the long term. Finally, Tony Scott's fifth recommendation is efficient and effective acquisition and deployment of existing and emerging technologies. So again, this is a two-part recommendation. Number one, deploy what you have, your existing technology, and number two, look at the new stuff. This accords with what DLT has been evangelizing for a while, which is to make your bed, get the basics under control first, but also look at the newer technologies. Earlier this year, I did a webinar in which we reviewed threat reports from numerous sources, from Symantec and McAfee to the Australian government, to various nonprofit organizations, Verizon, and so on. One of the threads that they all showed was that insufficiently patched systems were a huge vulnerability throughout government and private industry as well. Patching systems is not high-tech stuff. It's fairly straightforward to do, and there are tools to help you get that done. Use the tools that you have to get that done. Take care of the basics. Make your bed. Do the simple stuff first. Do the little things well. As the Navy SEALs say, if you can't make your bed in the morning, and SEALs are required to make their bed in the morning, how can we trust you to carry out a bigger, more important mission? So take care of the basics. Once that's done, though, you can get to the interesting and more advanced technologies, and there's a huge array of new technologies hitting the market now. That's way too large a topic for me to address in a short video like this, but some of the newer and more interesting and intriguing technologies are software-defined perimeter, adaptive multi-factor authentication, API gateway security, web application firewalls that dynamically patch applications so that you don't even need to implement a patch. Support for OAuth and OpenID Connect based technologies, microsegmentation, automated threat response, application whitelisting, predictive analytics for security. The list goes on and on. There's numerous interesting and fascinating and potentially very effective technologies to look at once you have your basics under control.